What a question at the end of that gospel. Enough to bring tears to the eyes, really, when you hear it. The same as those tears we can almost hear in Jesus' eyes as he asks it. Almost sorry that his own thinking, his own reasoning has brought him to that point. Will he find truth and faith on earth when the Son of Man comes? And yet there is truth in the question which he cannot deny. In my study at home, which sounds ever so grand, it's simply a room full of my toys, there is a copper plaque about A5 size, which my godparents gave to me many, many, many years ago, shortly after they discovered copper, I think it probably was. Or maybe that's just how it feels this morning. It bears a reference to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 17. The words, "Pray without ceasing." And it bears the image of engraved praying hands. I'm sure I've probably said before, and will again say many times in the future, that I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to visit the Millennium Dome as an extra adult with a school party. Because I was an extra, I didn't have a group of children whom I had to continually keep counting as we went round and round that building. I had extra time in which to explore on my own. And as we moved into the early afternoon, I desired just a little space from the busyness and the noise and the crowds and the everything. So I found a pathway that led round more behind the main exhibits, which circled the outer edge of the dome. Going through there, I came across some less auspicious doors than those at the front, but clearly intended for public use, and as they were unlocked, I went through those and found myself on the embankment above the river. Perfect. Nobody else in sight for a moment. I could breathe, gaze, just step away from the busyness and the noise, however exciting it may be. After a moment, I turned to look back at the dome itself to see how it looked from that perspective. As you might imagine, it arched up and away from me over its doming roof. But as the canopy itself came down towards ground level, under it was a machine that looked, I suppose, like a ticket machine in a car park would look. Except this was not a car park, there were no cars there, neither could there be, because you couldn't access it by road at that point. So I wandered across to have a look. I can't quite remember what was said on the outside of this box itself, but it invited the payment of 20 pence. I was a rich man in those days. I had 20p to spare. I paid my fee, and on the little LED display came up the words, "It pays to pray." I wasn't expecting that. I can't remember how many millions the dome eventually cost, but at that moment, I decided it was worth it. There are many ways to pray, of course. There are quiet days, there's churches, there's our own morning and evening prayer through the week. There's the quiet of our 8 a.m. service and the music and the movement and the noise of this. All manner of different manners and approaches and ways pertinent and personal to each of us. In the Muslim pattern of prayer, of course, there are set physical postures to accompany and through which one processes in prayer. I can't remember the particular reasons for them. But for me, they carry a sense of both humility and of honourable status before God, as one bows low, but also as one stands up straight, as a child of God, as we might say it. But think of our own patterns also. as on that copper plaque at home, hands together. A sense perhaps of asking, or even of pleading, but certainly of interceding for others before God. An older pattern of prayer in our own tradition would be to have hands apart with their palms raised up, an image of offering and also receiving. But go back to that former one, the one we remember from the words of childhood, hands together and eyes closed. In an interview I saw recently with Justin Welby, he was speaking of when he recently met the Pope. I'm just casting those names out there this morning. The Pope had said to him, in prayer, we create space for the grace and mercy of God. And as Justin Welby reiterated these words, that in prayer we create space for the grace and mercy of God, he just moved his hands apart. I appreciate this is not going to work so well on the audio recording. Keeping your palms facing each other, it very visibly creates a space. Effortlessly creates a space in the joys or the busyness or the worries or the struggles or the whatever of our life and our world. And into that space we can invite the grace and mercy of God. In Jesus Christ we see the model of God's invitation into infinite joy and hope. In prayer, we are invited into a conversation, an imitation, an invitation to join in a life, an action of such grace and joy and hope. Joy, that deep, settled confidence that whatever our life is going through, be it happy, joyful, or a struggle, or seemingly unbearable, God is nevertheless engaged right at the heart of it. To create a space for grace, which can be for us or for others. And mercy to us and others. And so through that, for us always to know hope. That is a reason to hold faith. And I've met nothing that denies or can challenge the truth of it. There is truth in Christ's question. Let there be equal truth in our answer. That yes, we hold faith on earth.